There comes a point in society where production is no longer really important. To illustrate this, I like to use the example of a smaller society than the one we currently live in. If you imagine a fairly independent group of people, and they're manufacturing most of their own things, then what happens is once everyone has the clothes they need, once everyone has a house that's built, once everyone has all the utilities and different knickknacks, and these things are built to last for a very long time, there comes a point where no one really needs to be producing very much except to occasionally replace things. But we have this issue in our current society where things are constantly being replaced. In reality, production is not something that has to be going on indefinitely. But because we have things like fashion is always changing, every year it seems like people need to go on shopping sprees to get the latest North Face jacket or whatever it is this time. We also see with things like Christmas, parents will buy so many toys for their children, but it's very easy to be doing this and not thinking about where this toy is coming from and what makes it possible for all the children in America to have a ridiculous number of toys, which they soon grow out of. You see a similar trend with electronics, where with the iPhone, there's always a new one coming out. And this creates so many different problems. There's not only the issue of the labor that goes into making these things that is often outsourced to other countries that where the people are very impoverished and not treated properly. There's the issue of the actual resources that are needed to create the phone, and of course there's the eventual waste where everyone has gone through their old iPhones and they end up in a dumpster somewhere along with last year's fashion trends. A lot of these problems are created because of our pursuit for profit, but we're going to realize at some point, we have to realize this, that profit without resources is not doing the world any good. So you see, the society is in a constant state of flux where it's never really satisfied with where it's at, but always trying to, get some higher level, some higher caliber of fashion, or a more faster phone, or a computer with more memory, and so on. And we get kind of caught up in the trap of thinking that just because this thing is quantifiably in some way better, in the example of electronics, than the past generation, it does not necessarily make us more happy. I mean, it might look a little bit more appealing, but that novelty quickly wears off, as with all things that people go on shopping sprees for. It all eventually wears off, but when it does wear off, there's always something new, and this perpetuates the cycle. I think a good way to solve this issue would be to possibly slow down on innovation a little bit. We don't really need faster phones. We don't really need significantly better graphics on our game consoles and computers, things like that. Without this cycle, there comes a point where money itself becomes obsolete, because everyone has the things they need. Everyone has a house that's built. Everyone has, all the different things that you would normally spend money on. I personally am a fan of the way that Native American tribes functioned before we came along and said that agriculture is the way of doing things, and kind of threw them out, and along with most of their culture. But of course they had no money, really. They just had such a strong sense of community that everyone was provided for. Everyone had everything that they needed. They didn't feel like they needed all these fancy cars and large houses. And even if they were offered these things, I think that they would realize that it's not necessarily the house or the car that's going to make you happy, but it's the community itself. It's where the car takes you. It's who you bring into the house. And in a sense, their house was the land itself. The real value in the world has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with the actual use of the things that our work creates for us. It has everything to do with our own enjoyment of the things that we create and the society that we've created. I mean, I'm not saying that we have to regress to a society that lives in a primitive type of way. I'm not saying we have to abandon our cultural norms entirely. However, I think it's very important that we consider strongly what is actually going to lead to a stable, happy society. Is it really going to be further progression of the technologies we have? Or is it going to be a smarter application of them? If we want to have a stable society that is at the most benefit for everyone, not just the people at the top, then we need to make it so that we are not just pursuing profit, but we are making things that last for a very long time. We have to begin to see that the incentive for corporations to be striving for ever-increasing profits is not necessarily what's best for society at large, and take action for ourselves by not always buying into the commercials we see and the type of marketing that goes on today. I think we should also ask ourselves to what extent the existence of corporations is necessary, and how can we be reshaping the way that we go about production to not just be benefiting the corporation, but everyone in society. How can we change the motivation from corporations that plan on obsolescence for higher profits to making it so that those who are producing things for the society are doing so for the mutual benefit of everyone and not just themselves, and without realizing that we are directly responsible for the actions of the corporations, then I don't see how we're going to really resolve the sort of economic issues we have today. Because while competitiveness may have been a good motivator in the past, with the way things are right now, where we have kind of like a global society, I don't think that this is the motivator that we need.